Parade madness. An event that's prominent in my family today is Canada Day. Now, my little rural Alberta town has a population of between 4,500 and 5,000. It's growing all the time thanks to its quaint, peaceful existence available to everyone who's willing to live a little ways out of the larger city centre. It's the kind of community where, on any given day, you'll see many folks out caring for their lawns, barbecuing, walking their dogs. It's kind of town where little grocery store has been in operation for over 100 years, and everyone gathers at the local post office when they go to pick up their mail. The kind of place that would have provided Norman Rockwell, for instance, an inspiration for another 100 Saturday evening post covers. When my wife and I first moved here almost 20 years ago, on the first night we arrived, I called my wife out to the front yard. Bonnie, come out here, check this out. Bonnie scurried out to ensure she didn't miss what I was going to show her. Listen, I said. Listen to what? She asks. I don't hear anything. Exactly, I declared. The silence in our little town after dark was so invigorating. We moved to our little town from a city of more than 1 million people, and this kind of peace was a myth up until then. But each summer, on the first day of July, that peace in our little town comes to an abrupt halt. Well, it isn't quite as sudden as all that, but during the last week of June each year, the town begins to become noticeably more crowded. Much more traffic, more shoppers at the local stores, more walkers and joggers each morning. Even after the sun goes down, you can hear the muttering of sounds of families gathering for barbecues and happenings. Yes, Canada Day is a really big deal here. In fact, our little town has a fairly large number of older folks, so it becomes a gathering place for family reunions for many large clans. The yearly gathering is significant enough that our little town balloons from around 5,000 in population to about 20 or 25,000 people. And this can only mean one thing. The very popular and sizable Canada Day parade is going to occur. The town parade puts other parades to shame. Businesses from local larger centers and other smaller centers all bring floats and enter them in the parade. We get multiple marching bands, funny tiny cars with Shriners driving them, giant flat deck trailers with each one filled with throngs of members of prominent local families here for those family reunions that I talked about. And we get parading horses with people atop dressed in absolute unbelievable regalia. One of the standard traditions that's kind of standard in all parades, I think, is that folks on the floats toss candy out to the spectators. Some of the young and some of the young at heart scramble out to grab themselves a treat. The parade used to go right past our home. People sat comfortably in their fancy puffy lawn chairs along the edges of our yard in an effort to get a good view of the parade. Eventually the parade began, and we watched as fire trucks, tractors, and floats of all types rolled by. Marching bands, parades, horses passed periodically. Sometimes the parade would stop just for a minute, and then it would proceed again. Well, as some parading horses trotted past my house this one year, the parade came to a halt. For about a minute, the paraders looked ahead to see what was holding up the line. Spectators also encroached a bit further into the street to try and identify the reason for the stoppage. Spectators took this opportunity also to run out and more safely collect candy that had been thrown but didn't quite make it to the curb. As fate would have it, this was the exact moment that one of those parading horses closest to our side of the road began to have a bathroom break. Now, anyone who knows anything about horses knows it's quite a drop from the horse to the ground. So the residual splash was astonishing. Chaos erupted. Children dashed for cover. Parents, grandparents tossed everything aside, scrambled to safety. It was pandemonium. Every spectator for themselves. No individual was too old or too young to be trampled. In fact, some folks may very well have been trampled in the ensuing dash from the splash. No one died, but I do know of a few pulled muscles, bruises, and at least one older woman who tipped her giant soda across her lap in a haste to get out. Once folks scurried out of the splash zone, they began to feel better, but this feeling was premature. No sooner had they reached the safe distance Then they turned around to see all of their hats and sitting pads and jackets and puffy lawn chairs laying in the street with a torrent of urine rolling towards them. So another point about horses is that they can expel a lot of fluid. With that, the revelers panicked again and ran back to the street to retrieve their belongings, and just to polish them off, fate triggered a second horse to do the same. The spectators once again had to retreat with the very few of their belongings, and because the horses had taken a few steps forward, this second splash joined the first in its roll towards the curb. Can someone in the comments tell me, when a horse takes a whiz, does it trigger other horses to do the same? Because by the time all was said and done, 4 horses had done the same thing in nearly the same spot. I expect that many folks arrived home after the parade, and rather than going home to their house, they went to their backyard and hosed each other off. And then their fancy puffy lawn chairs they probably left under the sprinkler for a while. I laughed so hard at the sight that it made having hordes of people trample all over my lawn 100% worth it. Then after the parade was concluded and the partying throngs headed to the old-fashioned Main Street penny carnival or to the local rodeo, I had to go out with the garbage bag and collect a small amount of trash that probably was left around my property. Do you remember that I explained how the paraders would toss candy to the spectators and that the horses had relieved themselves on the street? Well, I came outside only to see 3 fairly young boys, I expect 5-ish years old, squatted down in a circle with their elbows on their knees and their faces in their hands, looking down at a large lollipop still in its wrapper, standing wedged in a huge fresh pile of horse dung, which had also been left during the pause in the parade. With each boy looking at the rather large candy and then at each other, trying to decide who would be brave enough to reach down and rescue the prize before the street sweepers arrived. The scene sent me back to a time when life was simpler, and I had a good laugh. How do you experience Canada Day parade at your place? Any funny experiences? As usual, drop them in the comments for others to enjoy. I thank you for being here and listening and for making my family a part of your family. Come back often. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. See you next time.